and welcome. Before we get into today's stories, be sure to subscribe to my channel. Also, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Lakeland, Florida. Middle of the state, middle of nowhere for most people, but for the Wiles family it was the center of their world. They owned National Flight Services, an aircraft maintenance and charter company based out of Lakeland Linda Airport. It was a family-run operation, and like many family businesses, everything rested on the next generation. That next generation was Robert Wiles, a 26-year-old pilot and business development manager tipped to take over from his father. On April 2nd, 2008, the Wiles family was about to be pulled into one of the strangest extortion schemes Florida had ever seen. It all started with an email that no parent ever wants to read. The small airport where this all unfolded wasn't glamorous, more known for training flights and cargo than commercial travel. Thomas Wiles had built National Flight Services since 1972. It wasn't just a Florida operation. They had offices in Ohio, Texas, and even Canada. Tom's son Robert had grown up in Ohio, earned his pilot's license after graduating from military academy, and moved to Lakeland to work in the family business. He was young, ambitious, and seemed to have a good life. Fishing when he wasn't flying, dating casually but seriously focused on work. He lived alone in an apartment in Lakeland. The company itself was successful enough to be a multi-million-dollar operation, and Robert was the obvious heir. That made him valuable, and, as the family soon discovered, a target. The plan was simple. Robert would slowly learn the ropes until he was ready to replace his father. But Robert wasn't just an heir. He was passionate about aviation. Colleagues described him as someone who could see himself in the cockpit for life. His disappearance wasn't just a family tragedy. It threatened the entire future of the company. On April 2nd, 2008, at 5:59 p.m., Tom Wiles was in his Swanton, Ohio corporate office ready to leave for the day when an email popped up. The sender looked like his son Robert, maverick2836@gmail.com, but the contents were nothing like Robert. It was a ransom demand. The message warned that Robert was being held and would only be returned alive if Tom followed instructions exactly. Tell no one. Get $750,000 in small unmarked bills. Ship it to Lakeland, hidden inside a cardboard box addressed as confidential project materials for Robert. They gave a deadline of April 8th. No excuses, no authorities. We are watching everything. Signed, Group X. Robert had last been seen on April 1st at work. His car was still in the parking lot. This wasn't a prank. The strange thing was how businesslike the email sounded, like someone trying to mimic professionalism but failing. The number, $750,000, was oddly specific, not the kind of round figure typical kidnappers demand. The FBI immediately got involved despite the kidnapper's warning. $750,000 was an oddly specific figure. Tom had once paid that exact amount to buy out his ex-wife Pamela's share of the company. The company even had kidnap insurance, something rare enough to raise eyebrows. Investigators started looking at everyone close to Robert, from his family to disgruntled employees. Robert had fired a worker for drinking on the job and was reportedly frustrated with office politics. Was this someone with a grudge? A random kidnapper wouldn't know about the company's insurance or its financial history. This had to be someone close. Yet Group X sounded like either multiple people or a bad alias. The investigation became a maze of possibilities. Tips came in, including speculation Robert may have staged the whole thing. Some co-workers said he joked about faking his own kidnapping, though nothing suggested he was serious. Meanwhile, the family made public pleas, offering rewards and begging for Robert's safe return. Every lead seemed to open another dead end. The kidnappers wanted the money placed directly in Robert's office, a bizarre choice for a drop-off point. The FBI decided not to pay. Instead, they filled the luggage with coffee weighing the same as the cash and set up hidden cameras. Operations manager Toby Holt, described as trusted, was chosen to handle the drop. They waited. No one came. Silence. After April 8th, the kidnappers stopped contacting the Wiles family altogether. The family offered a $250,000 reward on television. Tips poured in, but Robert remained missing. Rumours surfaced he'd once joked about faking his own kidnapping, but there was no sign of him alive. For investigators, this was alarming. In real kidnappings, communication doesn't just stop after the deadline, it escalates. The silence suggested something far darker. Robert may have been dead from the very beginning. As investigators combed through Robert's phone records, they noticed calls and texts sent to Tom from Robert's phone after the disappearance. One was traced to a Florida turnpike. Police asked Tom to review footage from the area. He recognised one car, Toby Holt's. Holt had claimed he left the office around 6:15 p.m. on April 1st after seeing Robert in his office. He said he then went to Hooters, Outback Steakhouse, and later a hotel. None of that checked out. CCTV showed no Holt at the restaurants, but it did show him at Home Depot buying duct tape and plastic sheeting that night. His car and Robert's were the last two in the parking lot. Holt later changed his story about when he left. He also had a pattern of undermining Robert at work, hiring his own loyal staff, and even collecting negative observations about the boss's son. All of it painted a picture of a man with motive and opportunity. The FBI now had a suspect who wasn't just an employee, but someone Robert actively clashed with. To co-workers, their rivalry had been no secret. Holt wanted more control. Robert was standing in his way. In December 2009, Toby Holt was arrested in Orlando. He was charged with first-degree murder, kidnapping, extortion, and making written threats. There was no body, no blood, no physical proof. Holt denied everything, even as investigators produced phone data showing Robert's phone and Holt's phone travelling together after the disappearance. On the witness stand, Holt stayed calm, even smiling, as prosecutors laid out the circumstantial case. He was the last person seen with Robert. His alibis didn't match surveillance. He bought duct tape and plastic sheeting the night Robert vanished. He was deeply in debt and had conflicts with Robert over company contracts. The defense argued this was all office drama, not murder. Without a body, the case was a gamble. Jurors listened to weeks of evidence that relied entirely on circumstantial proof. In the end, they split the difference, unwilling to call it murder but unwilling to let Holt walk free. The jury compromised. They found Holt guilty of manslaughter and extortion, not murder or kidnapping. He was sentenced to 30 years in prison. To this day, Holt maintains his innocence, insisting he never harmed Robert Wiles. Robert's body has never been found. His disappearance remains one of Florida's strangest unresolved crimes.
I did not participate in any kidnapping of Robert Wiles. I don't know anything about his disappearance. I'm not sure who was involved.
Toby, did you murder Robert Wiles?
Absolutely not. I did not murder Robert Wiles.
You did not harm him in any way?
Absolutely not. I had nothing absolutely against Robert Wiles or his family.
You are telling me that you are an innocent man wrongly accused of this crime?
The honest truth is there's no conclusive proof of anything.
Do you believe Robert Wiles could still be alive today?
I mean, it's possible, but I don't think it's probable.
Imagine a man accused of horrific crimes suddenly vanishing before trial, not by running off to another country, not by faking his death, but by literally disappearing into the earth. For years, no one could find him. Police, family, even locals thought he'd escaped the state. But when a hunter stumbled across a strange hidden door buried in the Wisconsin woods, the truth of where Jeremiah Button had gone and how he had survived would leave everyone speechless. Jeremiah Button seemed like your average small-town guy. Born in 1975 near Warsaw, Wisconsin, he lived a quiet life with his parents well into his 30s. He wasn't popular, but he wasn't invisible either. That quiet, slightly odd neighbour who liked computers and tinkering with electronics. People thought he was intelligent, even gifted, but a bit off. What nobody knew was that behind his calm, geeky exterior, Jeremiah was hiding something deeply disturbing. Between 2006 and 2012, under the same roof where his parents slept, he repeatedly abused a relative. She was a minor. When the victim grew older and found the courage to speak out, it shattered the illusion of Jeremiah's quiet life forever. In 2014, the truth finally came out. Police searched Jeremiah's home and found thousands of illegal images and videos, many that he had filmed himself. The footage was time-stamped, clear, and unmistakably taken inside his home. Jeremiah was arrested and charged with multiple felonies, from possession of child pornography to child enticement. With evidence stacked against him, prison was inevitable, but instead of being locked up, Jeremiah was released on a $25,000 bond. He had to hand over his passport and stay off the internet, but otherwise, he was free to roam the state. He played along for 2 years, attending his hearings and acting cooperative. But while everyone thought he was preparing for trial, Jeremiah was secretly preparing for something much bigger, an escape no one would see coming. In 2016, just 2 weeks before his trial, Jeremiah was gone. He'd left a note for his mother claiming he was heading to Florida to start a new life. Investigators tried tracing him, but there were no tickets, no bank activity, and no digital trail. Some thought he'd been murdered. Others believed he'd fled the country. His family hoped he'd just gone to live quietly somewhere else. But the truth was, Jeremiah hadn't gone far at all. In fact, he was closer than anyone imagined, hiding deep in the woods beneath layers of soil and secrecy. For years, his name stayed on Wisconsin's most wanted list. But every tip led nowhere. Nobody thought to look underground. Fast forward to August 2019. In the quiet town of Ringgold, Wisconsin, local hunter Tom Nelson was walking a familiar trail when he noticed something off. Tracks in the snow that someone had tried to cover with pine branches. That alone was strange enough to raise alarm. Following the markings, Tom stumbled upon a door built right into the side of a hill. Nearby was a homemade septic system, the kind that had been used. It freaked him out so much that he backed away and called police, but they couldn't locate what he'd seen. Months later, his curiosity got the better of him. Tom returned, found the same hidden door and pushed it open. Inside, he found food cans, wires, and an eerie single light bulb swinging from the ceiling. But what really froze him was when something moved. Lying on a bed in the corner was none other than Jeremiah Button, staring right back at him. Turns out Jeremiah had never left Wisconsin. After skipping trial, he hopped a freight train, covered himself in coal dust to avoid detection, and trekked 2 days on foot to a bunker he'd spent nearly 2 years building. Hidden beneath the earth and camouflaged with branches and brush, his underground hideout was astonishingly well built. It had solar panels for electricity, a stationary bike for backup power, a water filtration system, and shelves stacked with canned food. He even had a flat-screen TV hooked up to a DVD player, stocked with, disturbingly, children's shows.
In the backwoods of Marathon County, 30 miles from Wausau, this is the bunker.
Come up and you take this left right here, you'll see the entrance to the shelter.
Where Jeremiah Button hid from police and the world for years.
This is the shelter that he built/lived in for the 3.5 years that he was on the run. Up top, you can see that's where his bed was. His head would lay to the right there, his feet to the left. You see his TV, his radio.
Charged with first-degree child sexual assault and child pornography in 2016, his parents paid $25,000 cash to bond him out. And police say Button then took off, building a bunker into an embankment on public lands deep inside the woods.
He had access to heat. It stays relatively cool in here in the summertime, as you can feel. With the surrounding rock walls. There was nothing that would indicate that he was suffering in any way. The 15 years I've worked for the Sheriff's Department, I've never seen anything quite like this.
He strategically built the bunker near a landfill where he could salvage all the supplies he needed to build a self-sustaining shelter.
Obviously, it's a little bit of a pack rat type of situation, but obviously Jeremy Button had some sort of background or the ability to learn quickly how to disassemble and reassemble things to make his life better out here.
The bunker sat near a landfill where he scavenged for supplies, completely off-grid but fully functional. It wasn't just a hideout, it was a full-blown underground home. For over 3 years, Jeremiah lived there alone, undetected and isolated from society, until Tom accidentally found him.
But one noticed he was out hunting in late November when snow was on the ground.
What I found was somebody trying to cover their tracks, which I thought was really strange. Someone must have taken a pine bough and was covering their tracks.
It was that November day Nelson found the doorway to Button's bunker. The feeling that something was very wrong consumed him for months until Friday.
I walked up to the door, pushed it open, saw all the stuff in there. I'm like, wow. Turned the light on my phone, started walking in there. I saw him move. I saw him move in the bed. I backed out, and man, I was just shaking the whole time.
As soon as Nelson had cell reception, he called sheriff's deputies. Nelson guided the deputies to the bunker, and after a 20-minute standoff, Button came out and was detained.
There was just something that told me that I need to go in there and find out what's going on. So that's what I did, and luckily the guy's behind bars, and hopefully the people that he offended sleep better knowing he's behind bars.
When police arrived at the scene, Jeremiah refused to come out at first. For 20 tense minutes, he threatened to harm himself rather than face arrest. But eventually he surrendered, calm, polite, and eerily relieved. He told officers it felt nice to have human contact again. After years of total isolation, those were some of his first real words to anyone. Authorities searched the bunker, seizing his electronics, hard drives, and all his makeshift equipment. In court, Jeremiah admitted that nobody knew about the bunker. Not friends, not family, no one. He said he built it as a way to punish himself for his crimes, though most people believed it was just a way to avoid prison and the brutal reality awaiting him inside. In 2020, Jeremiah Button pleaded no contest to multiple felony charges. He was sentenced to 34 years in prison, meaning he'll be in his 70s before he's eligible for release. In 2021, his bunker was demolished by the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. It took several days to dismantle the entire structure, including the septic tank, still full by the way. Today, all that remains is a patch of dirt and a few broken branches where his underground world once existed.
No excuse for what I've done, nor can I explain it. I know at the time I came up with justifications for it, but the bottom line is I was sick and out of my mind.
In the quiet town of Daniels, West Virginia, Natalie and Michael Cochran seemed to have everything figured out. A big home, nice cars, family vacations, the picture of success. But behind that perfect image was a life built on lies. By the time anyone realized something was wrong, one person was already dead, and the other was facing life in prison. Natalie Page Cochran was born in November 1980 and grew up in West Virginia. She met Michael Cochran back in high school, and the two became inseparable. After graduation, they both went to West Virginia University. Natalie studied pharmacy, and Michael majored in information technology. The couple married in 2000 and eventually settled down in Daniels, where they bought a 3,000 square foot home on 4 acres of land. They raised 2 kids, a son and a daughter, and Natalie built a solid career as a pharmacist. But after years in that steady job, she wanted more money, more freedom, more excitement. And that's where things started to unravel. In 2017, Natalie suddenly quit her job and announced she was starting a company that supplied firearms and tactical gear to federal agencies, names like the CIA, Homeland Security, and the Department of Defense. She told people she got the idea from the movie War Dogs. Natalie started asking family, friends, and even neighbors to invest, claiming she was bidding on government contracts that could bring huge profits. She convinced people to hand over hundreds of thousands of dollars. Some invested $250,000, others even $500,000. With her pharmacist background and confident personality, she was convincing. Everyone trusted her, and for a while, her business looked successful. The Cochrans lived lavishly, taking trips to Paris and Hawaii, buying multiple properties, motorcycles, a boat, and a classic sports car. No one suspected the empire was built on fraud. The first real sign of trouble came from an unexpected place, a local middle school baseball league. Natalie helped manage their fundraiser, which raised $32,000. But that money mysteriously disappeared. She denied stealing it, yet suspicions lingered. Around the same time, some of Natalie's investors started getting restless. They weren't receiving any returns on their investments, even though she kept claiming new contracts were coming. Still, most people gave her the benefit of the doubt. She'd built so much trust that few believed she could be lying. On the surface, everything still looked fine. Then, in February 2019, things took a dark turn. On February 6th, Michael and Natalie were supposed to fly to Lynchburg, Virginia, to meet a Bank of America representative about the business. But that morning, Michael suddenly fell violently ill. He collapsed and had to be helped to the couch. Natalie called a friend who was a state trooper and the trooper's wife, who was in the medical field. Both advised her to take Michael to the hospital. Natalie refused, saying he just needed to rest. Throughout the day, more friends stopped by. All told her the same thing: get him to a doctor. She still refused, claiming Michael hated hospitals. Eventually, one of Michael's attorney friends came over, saw how bad he looked, and personally drove him to Raleigh General Hospital. By then, it was almost too late. Michael was admitted unconscious. His blood glucose level was 21, dangerously low. He never regained consciousness and died 5 days later, on February 11th, 2019, at just 38 years old. The initial cause of death was ruled natural causes, but investigators weren't convinced. They interviewed Natalie multiple times, and her story kept changing. First, she said Michael's collapse was due to a testosterone supplement she found on the counter. Then she said she found it in a cabinet. Later, she suddenly mentioned insulin, something no one else had brought up. Detectives soon learned that on the same day Michael collapsed, Natalie had borrowed a vial of insulin from a friend whose son used it. That insulin was later found in Natalie's refrigerator. As they dug deeper, investigators also uncovered the truth about her business. There were no government contracts. It was all a massive Ponzi scheme. By September 2019, the scam was fully exposed. Natalie was arrested and charged with 26 felony counts, including wire fraud and bank fraud. She had stolen over $2 million from investors. Her glamorous life was gone overnight. That same year, investigators exhumed Michael's body to test for foul play, but results were inconclusive. Still, police were certain Natalie had murdered him. In 2020, she pleaded guilty to fraud and money laundering and was sentenced to 11 years in prison. Then, in late 2023, after another exhumation, investigators finally found what they'd been looking for: traces of insulin in Michael's remains. That discovery led to a new murder indictment. Natalie went on trial in January 2025, accused of murdering her husband with insulin to keep her fraudulent empire from collapsing. After weeks of testimony, the jury found her guilty of first-degree murder on January 29th, 2025. The next day, they recommended a no-mercy sentence, meaning life in prison without parole. From a respected pharmacist and mother of two to a convicted murderer, Natalie's story became one of West Virginia's most shocking modern cases. It all began with a dream of living large and ended with a life behind bars.